means one thing, and one thing only. It's Florida State. Oh man, did I really do that? It's Florida State at 7
Wow.
o'clock. I did that, and there's nothing it's live. It's a live stream. There's nothing I can do about it. Absolutely nothing. I cannot recover from that. It's impossible for the next 55 minutes. But Cam can. He can just lift the show on his shoulders and do it all himself. Miami. We've got 20 shows in for Miami, plus a zillion before that. So there's more Miami football on this station than anything else. So my goodness, I really did that. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock's our place. And hopefully most of the people that are going to be online later, you didn't even hear what I just said. We're talking Florida.
Wow.
Miami. We're
wow.
Talking. There's two of them that's coming out of my mouth, and that's the only excuse I have, and that's a poor one.
We need to get that together. I don't know.
Cam Underwood from State of the U talking Miami football.
Hey, there it is.
Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. My goodness.
Yeah.
Break. I slept 45 minutes last night. I'll make that excuse too. Cam, how you doing tonight? Please take it away. Please.
Hopefully I do not trip over my words such as you have. Just wanted to let you guys know I'm wearing my Built Off Hate shirt today. So I guess Mark wanted to play into that by naming either one or both of our biggest rival or some of our biggest rivals off the top. But no, I'm good personally. Took a little vacation last week out to Denver. I put that on social media. That's why I can say that now. For just to see, I have a bunch of friends who live out there. Shout out to Brody Logan and a bunch of other people that I saw when I was out there. And my buddy's bachelor party trip was out there. So did that and everything. And yeah, back to, talk with you guys on a Wednesday evening about the Miami Hurricanes football program. Just wanted to take a second and put that in there. But yeah, I'm good.
Miami. We're talking Miami tonight, right?
Absolutely.
Miami. We're talking Miami. Okay. Miami. Got it straight. Yep. I was confused. Okay. We're talking Miami football here. We do that from time to time here at Mark Riders TV, the voice of college football. We do talk a little Miami football. So if you didn't know that, lock it in. We talk a ton of Miami. And of course, for full Miami sports and football coverage, go to State of the U on SB Nation. All right. I think this is kind of like spring football for me in regards to, I get so excited just because it's some kind of football that I just expect the news to just pour out as soon as they hit the field. Like, we're going to find things out about all these teams across the country. Well, unless somebody gets hurt, God forbid. And other than that, it takes a while to start to, because of the limited access on the field to the real play during the position battles and what goes on there on the field during August camp. It's difficult to get news that you can really hang your hat on and derive anything from. Has there been anything since these guys have hit the field that you can say we're getting something here or there in regards to a position battle, or this guy looking really good, or maybe this is a concern?
Well, the concerns are still the same. The pecking order at cornerback being one of them. It looks like Al Blades Jr. has a slight leg up on DJ Ivey for the number 2 cornerback slot, opposite Trajan Bandy. But both of those guys are going to play, that being Ivey and Blades Jr. With Bandy, that's your top 3 right there. So all of those guys are going to play. You have Takori Couch and Christian Williams, true freshmen, who are working in as well. And they need to obviously step up a little bit to be game ready, but maybe in small doses, each one of those guys can contribute as well. Along the offensive line, the story is really Zion Nelson, and we've talked about him before. Wrote about him. Obviously, he was recruiting this past year's recruiting class, but he was 185 pounds as a high school freshman. He was 235 pounds going into his high school senior year of last year. Was 240 pounds. Was 240 pounds as a recruit when he was a 2-star recruit going to Appalachian State. Miami came in late, flipped him, and he's up to 290 pounds, and he's working exclusively at left tackle with the first team unit with very little rotation, if any, there. And it looks like he's going to go from being, again, a 240-pound 2-star recruit to being the starting left tackle at the University of Miami for week 1, which is a crazy fast ascension. I wrote in the recruiting notebook on Nelson after he signed, and he was an early enrollee. He was one of 3 in this class. And I said 10 out of 10, he's going to redshirt. He's a guy who's 2 or 3 years away from seeing the field, if ever. And he's, I mean, making me eat my words because I went back and I looked at it today and I was just like, oh, yeah, no, I was 100% certain. Like, this kid is a stick. You know, he's not going to play at 6'5", 235, 240. I mean, come on. Like, I mean, yeah, you're playing small time. And I mean, not small time. You're playing a lower classification in South Carolina where he's from. So you're not even playing like those big Zach Pickens or Jadeveon Clowney kind of guys in high school. So you can get away with being 240. But there's no way you can do that at the college level. But he's not 240 anymore. He's up to 290, and he's still working on adding functional strength. I've talked about it a bunch of times. You need that grown man strength. That's where that you just grow up a little bit more. But yeah, it's looking like he's going to be the guy out there at left tackle, which is crazy. But I mean, if he can do the job, and Miami obviously has needed tackles for years. We've all said that. So if he can do the job, then great. At right tackle, there seems to be a battle going on between John Campbell and Kylian Herbert. Yes, Dreadlock, I'm back this week. This is me, Cam. Hello. Yeah, there's a battle at right tackle going on, but the interior of the line seems to be set. Navon Donaldson at left tackle, left guard, Corey Gaynor at center, and Jelon Scaife at right guard. So the interior seems to be set, and those, a true freshman looks like he's going to start at least at this point in camp. And then, got a battle going on at right tackle. So there's that. And I say all of those things about cornerback and about offensive line as the preamble, because the real story of any position battle is quarterback still. Nobody has really separated themselves, which is good and bad. It's good because all three quarterbacks in the position battle, being Tate Martell, N'Kosi Perry, and Jarren Williams in alphabetical order, has stepped their game up in what they do well, but they have also shown chinks in the armor or things that they're not necessarily doing to an elite level. So again, they do each have, their different strengths and weaknesses, and those have come out. But the level of play is still increasing overall. And Miami, again, all three of those guys are Miami caliber talents, but we really do need one to step up and be the guy. I'm interested to see or hear what happens at the next scrimmage when hopefully quarterbacks are live, because Tate Martell was sacked 6 times. I use air quotations on that in the first scrimmage, but I don't think that with his running ability, he would be sacked 6 times if quarterbacks were live. I'm interested to see, N'Kosi Perry still trusts his arm a little bit too much. He threw one interception where he tried to fit it into a super tight window and the ball got tipped and then picked off in the secondary and returned for a touchdown. Jarren Williams just had a bad read trying to make a throw deep down the field that got intercepted, and had a couple other balls that were intercepted as well. The quarterback position did have 71% completions in the scrimmage, which is great. But after hearing people talk, especially Mike Rumph, the quarterback's coach today, say, we didn't give up much deep, which means that you're hitting those underneath throws, those constraint kind of routes, those crossing routes, those, the mesh route and everything like that, underneath the coverage, which is taking what the defense gives you, true. But Miami also has dynamic playmakers where we need to be going down the field a little bit more effectively. So I want to see where that can come from. So, I mean, those are still the questions and everything. Seems like there are some guys who are stepping up into some bigger spots. And, I mean, those are 3 positions right there: cornerback, offensive line, and quarterback. And going into kind of touching on the first question on the screen, who's the starting safeties? The number 1 safety right now is number 26 in your program, Gurvan Hall. That guy, I mean, he had both interceptions in the scrimmage. He's sideline to sideline. He is fully embodying everything that we saw in him as potential as a high school recruit. You see why, Nick Saban famously landed the helicopter at Palm Beach Lakes when he was there on the football field. He does that for recruiting purposes. They have to clear it with the school, so you have the room to land the helicopter, but you go there specifically for Gurvan Hall, because he's that kind of player. And even as a true sophomore, he seems like he is taking a gigantic leap forward. There are some other guys at the safety position, obviously Amari Carter. Derek Smith seems like he's taking a gigantic step forward from everything that's been seen and said. And Bubba Bolden, transfer from USC, who was at JUCO last year after getting dismissed from USC, but we have already talked about that anyway. He's on campus as of today. So that would be the final player from this recruiting class / transfer portal in transition, whatever you want to call it, to hit campus. So he had to finish a class at his JUCO. And the date was always, yesterday or today, August 6th or 7th, to hit campus at Coral Gables. And he is now there. Our guys who were at practice, Gabby Arruti and Marshall Thomas, they both had pictures of him. So did every other beat writer who was there at practice today. So he's officially on campus. He should hopefully be transitioning into practice in the next day or two. Obviously, there's the acclimation period where you have to be just in a helmet and then shells before you can put on a full set of pads, just because, the health and safety regulations of football. But getting number 21 on the field is going to be a real big boost for that secondary. And, people have already said that, he has the ability to, cover from the slot. He, is a rangy safety. He was All-American in high school. He was in line to start last year at USC as a true sophomore before, his situation befell him there. That's an elite talent that you add to the roster. So there's things that are going on all over the field.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, with Miami Hurricanes Live, edition number 20 with Cam Underwood from State of the U. Cam, maybe this will help make up just a little bit from the. So, folks, if you need to go back and watch some of the videos, so we're about 11 minutes in, and of course, I tell you all the time, if you miss some, you go back and watch the beginning. This week, when you do that, go in about 30 or 40 seconds at least. Please do that. Cam, see what we've got back? I am not counting down to Christmas. Can you read that?
Okay. Oh, okay. I see you. Sorry. Yeah.
We've got a countdown to August 24th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Right behind me. A viewer purchased that. They said, nice. You need a countdown clock. And I said, I don't have time to get a countdown clock. I'm not getting a countdown clock. Boom. Here came the money. We want you to have a countdown clock. Okay.
Yeah, very nice. I mean, you can get the online one. I have, those online timers and things like that, but an actual countdown clock behind you. That's pretty cool. That's pretty dope. So, yeah.
That is pretty cool. And there were some comments, unfortunately, that we've missed. So the live chat kind of scales down, and I can only go back so far. And there were actually some really good comments I wanted to get to, but we've passed them by, unfortunately. Do want to remind everyone that, of course, we've got 2 more shows after this one before the big game against Florida. Cam and I have decided Florida offense versus Miami defense to focus on one week. And then, of course, the Canes offense against the Gators defense the other week. And we'll talk some special teams mixed in as well. But we really need to grind on this one as we get close to the big game with the Gators about a 7-point favorite in Orlando. And I think I saw that the full black is going to be on for the Canes, right? Did they decide on the uniforms, or was that okay?
I have not seen that.
Okay, then if you don't know, then I saw something where somebody was just throwing something up there.
But I mean, also, I was only partially plugged in last week. Obviously, like I said, I was on vacation out in Colorado. So, I don't believe that that's been announced. And I don't think that for a season opener against Florida, we would go with the all black Merc Squad, Miami Knights, whatever you want to call it, uniform. Even though I'm wearing my, all black, shirt. I don't think that that's a thing that we would do in a traditional matchup as such, but we will see. It'll be interesting. And I mean, personally, I love talking about uniforms. I know that there's some people who do not enjoy that kind of fashion-based commentary, but I'm not one of them.
Hey, Cam, I'm going to take the comment that we've got on the screen. Actually, not the one on the screen. You can talk to that one as well. I saw one interesting in regards to recruiting from Nate 561. And I'm going to expand on this because he's focusing on Justin Flo. But when you look at the recruiting efforts of the current coaching staff and Manny Diaz leading the charge, how would they stack up against executing your 10 commandments?
Oh, yeah, the recruiting rules.
The recruiting rules.
Yeah. I mean, I did the recap last, in February after signing day. And I gave grades for how the recruiting rules were followed. And it wasn't necessarily great because the high school recruiting class was sparse. It did not meet muster at all for the University of Miami. You're talking almost like a 30th ranked recruiting class of just high school kids and things like that. You miss on so many guys locally and things like that. So it wasn't perfect on that. But going down so far right now, where do things stand in terms of The recruiting rules, I mean, it's hard to say too much this early about it. But maybe not, because Miami does have 23 commitments. So let's see. Get a quarterback every year. That's an A. You get Tyler Van Dyke from Connecticut, who's 6'4", 218 pounds, and can throw the ball 75 yards or 60 yards, whatever it was. It was like 65 or 70, yards with the flick of a wrist. So, you do that. You bring in a guy every year. You got Peyton Matoka last year. Even if one of the contenders for starting quarterback transfers out this year, you already have him coming in. And then, Miami is trending up for Jake Garcia, a 5-star out of Harbor City, California, Narbonne High School for 2021. So that would satisfy that moving forward. And that's really a position where you can look at the next year moving forward in terms of recruiting. And 247 Sports, they just had a piece talking about how the recruiting dominoes are already falling for the elite players in the 2021 recruiting class at quarterback. And again, Miami is trending up in terms of Jake Garcia, and especially with where some other guys have committed. Communication is key, is number 2. I think that's an A. Obviously, Miami and Manny Diaz pushing this hashtag TNM, the new Miami brand, and just staying in contact with, pretty much every player that they're going after. Eventually, you do have to kind of make your recruiting decisions, and you have to rank players. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean you have to follow any site's rankings or anything. And I know that the staff is saying we don't do that. We don't necessarily look at rankings. I will say it's funny though, however, that Ohio State released 2,000 pages of text messages from Urban Meyer just last week when I was away, or it was like on Friday, and he explicitly in there, him and Zach Smith and another coach were talking about the star ranking of a particular player in a recruiting class recently. So it's a thing that coaches know, even though they say we do our own evaluations. Even, the best are saying, hey, this kid's a 5-star, he got re-ranked a 5-star, he's this and that. So, the coaches are not 100% in the dark about what the recruiting industry or online sites say. That's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, so rule 2, communication is key. That's good. Recruit locally first and then nationally. I think that's actually going pretty well. If I look at the commitment list right now, and it goes over, out of Miami's 23 commits right now, 16 are from the state of Florida. I mean, that's 2/3. Yeah, that's literally, it's just under or over 2/3, because 16 out of 24 would be exactly 2/3. So you're talking almost 70% of the recruiting class is from the native state. And then you have one from next door in Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, North Carolina, and then you go up to Connecticut and New Jersey for, individual players. So yeah, locally first, nationally second. I mean, that's, again, I'm going to give that. Well, I won't give it an A, because there are some of the top guys who Miami is not closed on locally, but I'd give that probably a B or a B+. So that's rule number 3. Rule number 4, size matters. Okay, so you have to have size on the lines. So there's 3 offensive linemen and 5 defensive linemen and 4 linebackers right now committed. I think that number is going to switch, because I think one of the linebackers as listed right now is Romello Height, who's being brought in as a defensive end. So either way that you look at it, in the box, offensive and defensive line and, linebacker, that's what 3 and 5 and 4 is 12 total guys. So 12 out of your 23 are interior, or, those are along the lines and front 7. That'll work. Still need to close there. So I can't call that an A. I'll call that a B or a B+. Speed kills. So you need guys, on the edge with speed. We have one of the best running backs in America, and Don Chaney Jr. You have 3 wide receivers, including a literal track star, Marcus Fleming. And then in the defensive backfield, you have other guys who can fly, like Jaden Francois. And who else is a really big track guy? Oh, Marcus Clark, who's a 1,000-yard receiver with 4.57 speed, who we're going to put at cornerback. Like, yeah, that'll work. Could you use more speed? Absolutely. Do you have good speed right now? Yeah. So again, that's probably a B or a B+ for rule number 5. Rule number 6 is follow the visits. I'm going to come back to that one. Rule number 7 is stack elite classes. Obviously, this is going to be a foundational class moving forward, because last year's class was not as elite as it needed to be, but we're trending in that way. Recruiting to your strengths, I think that Miami is doing that in terms of all the things that they're pushing, whether it's academics in the case of Michael Redding III, who came to Miami or is going to go to Miami because we have an aerospace engineering major that none of the other schools in Florida have. And he openly stated that he was going to go to Notre Dame or Purdue for that major, if not, deciding to come to Miami. So that's a big thing. playing time, coaching staff, connection, community, all those things as well. So I think that's going to be an A. And the rule number 9, the last rule, is win. And obviously that is dependent upon the season. So I will not get into that one right now. That's to be determined. But going back to rule number 6, following the visits, this goes directly to the question about Justin Flowe. Those, the out-of-state guys and all the big recruits, they have to come down on their own dime, whether they're locally, regionally, or nationally. They have to take unofficial visits, usually. Justin Flowe is probably going to come back to Miami for an official visit, but there is still work to be done there. And the communication does need to continue with him. Same thing with Darnell Washington, 5-star tight end out of Las Vegas. Obviously, there are 3 Las Vegas natives on the roster right now, and Tate Martell, Brevin Jordan, and Bubba Bolden, but, they were all teammates at Bishop Gorman. I know that Washington goes to Desert Pines, which is another school in Las Vegas. So we'll see, what happens with that. But you have to really see, and it's not just following the visits to your school or to Miami, it's following the visits elsewhere. So like Justin Flowe's last visit was to Clemson, and then he hasn't been anywhere else since then. And I know fall camp is starting and everything, but it's like, okay, like, is he going to, is his first visit thing going to be to Clemson? So he backs up an unofficial with an official. Is he, taking an unofficial out to USC because Las Vegas is not that far from Los Angeles? Are all these other kind of things? So you really have to look at the whole picture of where these kids are going. And that will tell you that will give you lots of information as to where they're going to go or where they're kind of looking. And also that communication, it has to be, consistent. It has to be, strategic. And also not just from the program to the kid, you also have to pay attention to what they're saying. And, I love when, and I said this the last time I was on here, I believe, I love when recruiting writers either don't ask or ask very open-ended. Who are you looking at? Where are you going to go? You know what I'm saying? Like, who might get a visit? I love it when, and the kid is the one who says, oh, I'm looking at Oregon, Boston College, Texas, they're the one who brings it up. I love that, as opposed to like, a Miami writer saying, hey, what's up with Miami? Like, no, you're pulling out of them something then. You're not letting them create the content and give you the insight. Because for all the top 12s and all the top 25 lists that people put out there, they're not thinking about 12 or 25 teams. They're thinking about 3 or 4. So you let them tell you, hey, Mark, I saw you were at this other camp and everything. You were at the Rivals Challenge. So, like, what coach has he been talking to? Oh, I was talking to blah, blah, blah. That's where you really need to pay attention. And it's very few times that you have something like Jaden Hazelwood from last cycle who knows where he's going to go and intentionally deceives everyone until signing day. That's the aberration, not the rule. So, and again, you can go on stateoftheu.com and read all of the narrative for all 9 of those rules in the recruiting rules. But I think that Miami is doing pretty well on pretty much all of them to this point. But there is room to improve on, probably about most. I mean, if this class were to stay where it is right now, it would not be a top 10 class. It's 8th right now, and there's still plenty of room in other teams to add players. So, we will see what happens.
Cam Underwood, State of the U, talking Miami football with us each and every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time as we talk Florida State at 7, Miami at 8, and Ohio State at 9 o'clock Eastern time here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And, of course, Miami and Florida will get it on for the very first major Power 5 matchup of the year in just a few weeks. So we're looking forward to that. I have caught a name from, a buddy of mine here, Gil Villegas.
Nice.
Giving Gil, welcome. I haven't seen you watching my stuff and seen your handle on here. So welcome to a Wednesday night talking Miami football. The media has given the U a 3% chance to win the ACC. Thoughts? Well, I think we need to consider that Clemson's getting 90-some%. So nobody's getting.
Well. Clemson's getting 88% chance. So not even 90%, because some people have given Florida State of like a 5% chance or larger than that. And I mean, Florida State is a legacy program, but they're not a legendary team right now. And Clemson is, even though they're not necessarily a legacy program. And you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, but yeah, I mean, so there's that. The 3% is like, I would say, maybe like a 5%, like a 1 out of 20, right now. for Miami to win the ACC, because that means beating Clemson in the ACC championship game. And actually, no, I want to say that the biggest percentage right now is actually or non-Clemson percentage, I should say, is Syracuse, because that's going to be one of, if not the marquee game on that side of the conference this year.
Yeah, to look at it a couple different ways, anybody playing in the Coastal has a huge advantage because it's by far the lesser division overall, and because you don't have the big giants. So if you could do what Pitt did last year, I'm not talking you, Miami, anybody that plays in the Coastal Division, you could be a very marginal team and you get your one shot. Now, of course, it didn't work out for Pitt. They got blown out as expected, but you get your one shot after having a pretty marginal season, versus if you play in the Atlantic Division, unless Clemson, unforeseen, it comes completely apart. Syracuse probably gets X kind of odds because they've played Clemson better than anyone the last 2 years. And if they win that game and it's at home, then they have to lose twice to lose the division. So there's two different ways to look at it.
Right, exactly. So I don't think that the percentage chance given to Miami right now is ridiculous. Miami needs to go and prove it. I do believe, obviously, and I've said this before, that Miami should be and is the going away favorite for the Coastal Division. I am not sold at all on Virginia. I do not buy it in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I don't. I think that they're going to be a decent team. They can be an 8-win team, but Miami should be 9 or 10. So at least a game better. At least a game better than Virginia. I just don't see it. So yeah, I believe getting there, like Mark said, is one thing. Getting to the ACC championship game, getting there and beating Clemson is another thing entirely. To the question on the screen from Eli Arbaeza, who is my favorite NFL team? If you know me, I am a native Detroiter, and unfortunately, I'm cursed with the affliction of rooting for the Detroit Lions. So yeah, that's my team.
And Cam, there's another one for you. So before Cam answers this question, we appreciate all the contributions in so many ways: the likes, the comments, the shares, and of course, subscribing to the channel. But also the super chat is available to you and help us build the channel here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So we did have one question that was included into a contribution. I got it on the screen, but please understand that in this application, the stream advances and I can't go back as far as you can go back on YouTube to put the comments on the screen. But in terms of the turnover chain, who's going to win that glorious prize more so than anybody on the defense this year?
Oh, overall turnover chains.
That's why I'm reading that question.
Yeah, who will be number one in takeaways and how many will he get? So that is inclusive of the whole season. I'm going to go on a limb and say Gervin Hall. I'm going to say he's going to be number one in takeaways. I think that if he keeps playing this way, I think that Derek Smith is going to cause more turnovers, especially because he hits super hard. Anything he hits, he destroys. So we will see that. But I think Gervin Hall is going to have, I'll call it 5, maybe 6 between interceptions and fumble return or recoveries, something along those lines. And I think that that's a big number, obviously. But he's showing a propensity for that, and I think that he can hit that number definitely with the defense then ramping things back up. Because 2 years ago at the inception of the turnover chain, Miami got 31 turnovers on defense. Last year, Miami only had 17 on defense. So I think that number creeps back up.
Another question coming in from J Love T with his contribution as well. We appreciate your support.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Good, sir. Are we recruiting Marcus Dumerville, offensive tackle from St. Thomas Aquinas, that is? He's a beast. We are loaded in Florida at offensive line in the high school level. Do you see any sleepers that's Miami caliber? Ooh. So that's a couple of questions. Number one, we are recruiting Marcus Dumerville. We did extend to him an official offer on August the 1st, which is the first day that you can do that for any recruiting cycle. So August 1st of entering the senior year. So he did put that on Twitter that we did extend to him an official scholarship offer, which means that he can come to the University of Miami. You know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, it's not a verbal thing. Like, hey, we're going after you and see that like this. I mean, we extended him a written official offer. So yeah, I don't think he's coming here. I don't think that at all. So, I mean, it's kind of just playing out the string to me right now of just like, you're an elite player at an elite program, almost the elite program, nationally and definitely in the state of Florida. And, along with whichever Miami-Dade County school is currently the hot school, like, the best school or second best school program right now in South Florida. So, yeah, Marcus Dumervil is a kid who Miami is recruiting, but I don't see him coming here. Sorry. Any sleepers? I would have to really look, and it's really going to be when the games start in the high school season to really see if there's anybody who is kind of off of the radar who could be a guy to play at the University of Miami. And again, even if they are around, maybe they're, those 2 or 3 years down the road guys. And again, you're going to have those guys. John Feliciano, he didn't play till his second or third year. Danny Isadora coming from Cypress Bay, he didn't play till his third year. And both those guys were NFL draft picks, So everybody's not going to be a day one step in starter at left tackle like Zion Nelson might be. But even still, he's developed into that. He was not recruited like Alex Leatherwood, a couple years ago, who ended up going to Alabama. He started left tackle at Alabama day one because he was 6'5", 310. Those guys, if those guys existed down here, everybody would know about it. So I do think that there are some guys locally who could, on offensive and defensive line, and that's the thing that I wrote about in the recruiting rules, especially Andrew Ivins from 247 Sports, his contribution he was talking about in that piece, which is rule number 4? Rule number 4 on size matters. Andrew Ivins was saying, you got to find these guys who are, Power 5 caliber and, just connect with them now and circle back with them if you need to, because there's a finite number of offensive linemen in Florida, and especially in South Florida, where, if you miss on guys, like last cycle, we didn't have many offensive linemen because we missed on guys and then there was nobody else. And we hadn't even connected with those guys who were still Power 5 caliber, but not day one, year 3 kind of guys. So I think that, those guys do exist, and I hope that Miami is contacting some of them and evaluating them now. But yeah, we will see.
Jared Watts with my personal favorite comment of the night. You should watch a lot more Mark Rogers because you don't know anything about what you're talking about.
Wait, is that for me?
I just think it's for somebody else in the chat.
I was going to say, like, wow. Okay, Jared, I see you. But no, that's fun.
Our guy, Navy Thomas, I think having a little fun with me, likes to make comments during the inclement weather, looking out my window about how much snow there is and so forth and so on. Navy Thomas sees a glare or something and thinks that snow is piling up on my deck. Navy Thomas, believe me, it was like 92 degrees and still like 88% here. It feels like Miami here and has pretty much most of the summer. It's been very nice, but the humidity is like crazy, and it started pouring a few minutes ago. A guy Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U. Please join him and the rest of the crew there on SB Nation as they knock out the Miami Athletics coverage like a nobody's business, and especially football this time of year. Rod Kemp with the $2 contribution. Thank you so much for any contributions you guys make. Your financial situation, but just consider. You throw a buck, you throw a 2, you don't miss it. And can you imagine with about whatever I'm at 12,200 subscribers, can you imagine we could go full time and go crazy and you would not get sick of the college football coverage? You just couldn't imagine how much we would deliver on a regular basis. Cam Underwood, State of the U, 8:00 every Wednesday night. And we promise you breakdowns on Florida, Miami the next 2 weeks.
True story.
Yep.
I wanted to circle back on 2 things really quickly that we spoke about before. Number one, there was an injury, 2 injuries in Miami Hurricanes fall camp. Number one, Nesta Silvera, defensive tackle who was working in the second team, pushing for big time snaps as a rotating guy in that top 10 defensive linemen. He had a foot injury that required surgery, so he's going to be out for about 6 or 8 weeks. Which then moves up or changes the rotation at defensive tackle. So John Ford, he's a guy who's been starting, him and Pat Bethel, but he's going to be the number 1. And then I see that question. I'm going to get there in a second. And Chigozie Naruka, Pat Bethel, and then Jared Harrison Hunt from this year's recruiting class seemed like the top 4 at defensive tackle. And then hopefully a guy like a Tyreek Martin, who's a fourth-year junior, can give some kind of rotation snaps as the number 5 DT in there until Nesta gets back. So obviously wish him a swift and safe recovery from his foot injury and surgery. The other one was Cam Harris, the number 1A running back, if you will, because, I mean, we really just rotate him and DJ Dallas at the number 1 running back spot. He got it seemed like he tweaked a knee in the scrimmage. He was wearing a knee sleeve, like, neoprene sleeve kind of a thing on his knee at practice. There were, unfounded Twitter rumors that he tore every ligament in his knee. Cam Harris, that is, in the scrimmage, and obviously with him running around and everything at practice, those were proven to be false. But just wanted to make note of both of those. Kind of a thing. The question on the screen is, did I see? Oh, wait. Sorry. There was a question that somebody hit me with on Twitter right now who's watching. Wilfork's Belly is the name of the account, which is awesome. And the question is, why cannot Gilbert Frierson play cornerback? He just doesn't have that real full-time skill set. I think they tried him there. I always thought he was going to be a free safety, just, put him on the hat, in the middle of the field and let him play center field. But, he's growing into that striker role. He's the number 2 striker behind Romeo Finley, that hybrid outside backer safety position. And he's going to be probably the guy next year at striker because Romeo Finley is a senior. So, I don't think that he has that athletic profile, and neither do the coaches. So he's fitting in at a different spot. And I know that, we need guys at cornerback, and somebody with his height and length would be very good. But, you have DJ Ivey, you have Al Blaze, you have Christian Williams, who have a similar athletic build and a physical profile. So we're really looking at those guys at that spot instead of Gilbert Frierson. Now, 247 Sports is doing a bracket of the top, 16 teams of all time.
I tried to find it.
I know that Marshall Thomas, because he and I both run the State of the U Twitter account now. But I know I said I wasn't going to talk about it, and he quote tweeted it like literally after I said that. And I was just like, oh, bro, Marsh. Here it is. It's on Instagram, but it's the 246. Yeah, so it's the top 16 college football teams ever. And it's laughable. The direct question is, did you see 247 has 01 Miami ranked 5th best team of all time? Way too low, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, duh. It's way too low when you have the best team of all time, anything other than number 1. Like, it's asinine to have anybody other than 2001 Miami at 1 and 95 Nebraska at 2. Those are the best 2 teams just around, like, period. And what really lost me were some of the teams that they included, and also some of the other seedings, like 98 Tennessee. Really? Like, that's not a great team. I mean, yeah, they won the national championship and everything, but whatever. You have 2004 USC as the 11 seed. Do you remember USC? And bro. And then, before I go back to Mark, the number 1 team on this ridiculous.
I wish I could find this. I can't find it. I looked at that exact title up. 247 top 16 college football teams ever.
I'm going to at you right now. Here. At Mark. Oops, sorry. Hold on. At Mark Rogers T. Bang. I just hit you with it. The number 1 team on this list is 2013 Florida State. No, it's just not. I'm sorry. Just no. Like, I mean, if I look at it again, all of the teams that I would rank above 2013 Florida State are as follows. Obviously, 2001 Miami, the best team ever. 95 Nebraska. 04 USC, which was a beast and nobody wants to remember. 2018 Clemson, yup. 2008 Florida, no, because they were not undefeated. 2005 Texas, yup. Like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, I get what you're doing, or whoever is or was running that account at that time of the creation of that graphic at 247, and it was done to engender conversation, and it's a troll. Like, honestly, like, I'm sorry, like, no, and this is even if I wasn't me, if I was not a University of Miami alum, you know what I'm saying? I still have watched enough football where I know that there's 6 teams on that list and probably more that were left off. And I get you're going to leave other teams off because they didn't win championships. So like 88 Miami, they're going to get left off. 2000 Miami, they're going to get left off. And I get it. You know, all these other teams as well who fell short of championships are not going to make that bracket. But there are teams who didn't win championships who I'm going to take over 13 Florida State. Like, terrible, just terrible.
Well, to your point, the best team doesn't always win the championship, especially in college football, because of the voting system going up to 1998 and the BCS system since then. And, you know, we've had a subjective process. We even now have a subjective process. Of course, it's less subjective than it's ever been before. My question to start would be what period of time is being taken into consideration, because the oldest team on the board is Penn State 1994. So if you're taking college football historically, then you've got to consider that even though athletically teams from the 1940s or 50s don't compare to teams now, do you rate them comparably? Do you just say who's the best and the most dominant against their era, against their competition, and just weigh everyone equally? Or did they start at a certain period of time? Because I can't really make anything out of 1994 being the first year or the oldest team on this list, for one thing.
It's 25 years ago.
So they went with 25 years?
Seems like it.
Last 25 years. Okay. To speak to your Tennessee. So Tennessee went undefeated, won the first BCS championship. They deserve to hang a banner. They certainly deserve a championship, and they can argue that they're great. But yeah, that Tennessee team, week 1 or week 2, went to Syracuse, and it was one of those deals where the game was over, but there was a flag on the field. Cam might recall a game that was kind of like that. But there was a flag on the field. They were playing let's see, was this 1998? Yeah, they were playing Donovan McNabb in Syracuse, and they would have lost the game, but they were given a gift, and they won at Syracuse by 1 point. Okay, that's one. They were losing to Arkansas, a really good team that year, but not a great team, like a 9-3 kind of team, a really good Arkansas team with Clint Sterner at quarterback. Now, it's one thing, you know, sometimes people will cite a fumble as being a lucky play, but not when the defensive end beats the tackle and strip sacks the quarterback. That's a football play. Clint Sterner pulled away from center, dropped the ball. It's a muddy mess, and he can't get the football back, and Tennessee recovers. And otherwise, they are icing the game. Arkansas is icing. That Tennessee team could have lost 2 games. They could have lost the national championship game, but they were playing a Florida State third-string quarterback and won by a touchdown. They were not a great team. I watched that team live in the SEC championship game play an 8-5 Mississippi State team. 8-5 for the SEC championship, and they were down by 4 with 10 minutes left against a not unranked team.
I mean, there it is. I don't know what else to say, about it. Like, yeah, did they win? Yes.
Yeah.
But like,
good at them
to be a dominant team, like in the discussion that, they're trying to engender in that graphic and discussion. No, sorry. Like, just no. So, yeah.
Yeah, if you're just saying who won championships, well, Michigan and Nebraska won in 97, so they each have one. Then Tennessee won one, and those are equal. If we're just saying who won national,
well, I mean, they're all
starting to make an opinion-based argument of best teams, then they don't belong.
Right, and I will say that my Michigan 97 is on there. Obviously, I, being a native Michigander, and I went to half the games that year, have very fond memories of that. I also remember seeing, if you haven't seen it, look it up. It's one of the greatest plays I've ever seen in my entire life. You've probably heard of it and seen it. At Michigan State, Yes, Mark is doing it. Charles Woodson jumped about 19 feet in the air, and he got this one-handed interception, and he came down on the sideline with it. I lost my mind. And actually, I was just screaming the entire time seeing that. It was a superhuman feat, and it doesn't seem, even if you watch it now, like I'm going to watch it after this recording, and it boggles my mind to this day that he jumped that high and got that ball and got down with the foot, and it was ridiculous. So yeah, 97 Michigan was on there. That's all I'm saying. I grew up as a native Michigander rooting for the University of Michigan, and I have very fond memories of that fall, my sophomore year of high school. Yeah, sophomore. So yeah.
Michigan beat Ohio State that year 20-14. The Wolverines were 10-0. The Buckeyes were 10-1. Woodson had an interception in the end zone, a punt return for a touchdown, and he also caught like a drag route like for 35 yards to set up a touchdown. If he's not on the field, I think Ohio State wins the game. He was that dominant, and he deserved. I know people went crazy when Peyton Manning won the Heisman Trophy, but Charles Woodson was the best player in college football that year.
Absolutely. He was. And I mean, obviously those two different times that Michigan ran punt return left, one time with Desmond Howard and his Heisman Trophy season. That's when he put up the Heisman Trophy pose in the end zone. And then Charles Woodson in that 1997 season, both going up the same left sideline, going the same direction in the big house, was pretty good. Okay, but I'm going to leave that alone. I know. No. Sorry. Just went down memory lane for a little bit. Anyway, Tony Cladd asks a question. Cam, we need to beat UF and FSU or lose the recruits that we're competing against them for. Not necessarily. I mean, again, winning is a huge thing in football and in sports. I mean, yeah, you play to win the games. Shout out to Herm Edwards, but it is not necessarily a direct correlation in the recruiting process. It's just not. I know that people joked a couple of years ago that Mike Harley was going to go, to the team that won that Russell Athletic Bowl between Miami and West Virginia, but he was always going to come to Miami. I have that on good authority that he was coming to Miami. That's all I'm going to say about that. But winning games is obviously the tangible proof of concept, and it shows that what you're trying to install and instill is working. So this whole hashtag TNM New Miami competition, getting back to the roots kind of a thing. Yeah, you do need to win those games, but I don't think it's a direct correlation. And it's not, because Florida State beat us for recruits, and they were terrible the last couple of years. With Miami beating them up in Tallahassee in 2017 and down here last year, they still beat Miami for recruits where there was a 1-to-1 recruiting engagement going on. So would beating each of those teams help? Yes, unequivocally. I'm not going to say that it won't. Is it the only thing that matters? No. So, each player is different. Each recruitment is different. So getting kind of where you fit in, but it is a factor, not the only deciding factor, I don't think.
So this is a Miami show. So we just talk Miami. We don't go all over the map unless it's relevant and it connects to Miami in terms of talking about national college football. But I've got to address the comment on the screen. Okay. That Colorado team that won the national championship that year in a tie with a split national championship with Georgia Tech, that team went 9-1-1. So they already lost a game and tied a game. And that's the infamous team that played a fifth down that shouldn't have been awarded to them to win another game. They actually lost 2 games and had a tie. No, they should not have won a national championship. Andrew, just clarifying for you there.
Everything Mark just said is a fact. So, yeah.
Also, on the other side of the Desmond Howard and will not digress, Cam already did, and I should have been able to jump in right on the tail end of that. I was on the other side of that. I was in my first apartment I ever had by myself, and I had just started to rent that apartment, my first job out of college, and I was throwing a holy fit watching Desmond Howard.
We were both throwing fits, just on the opposite sides of the emotional spectrum, I guess.
Absolutely. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We always appreciate the time and effort that Cam Underwood gives us from State of the U each and every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. And we've got it locked in with 248 on the line. I think we've been up around 270.
Nice.
What about the Nesta Silvera injury? How badly does that hurt the rotation along the defensive front?
I mean, it hurts the rotation. He was probably going to be the number 3 D tackle, 3 or 4. So losing Silvera for, half of the year, it matters. But again, obviously getting Chigozie Nnaruka to transfer from UCLA is a big addition. Pat Bethel is in his 4th year. And he's probably just going to start next to – he is to defensive tackle what Trent Harris was to defensive end, where, he's not necessarily flashy. He's not the headliner, but he's just going to do his job and do it pretty well. So, yeah, Bethel and Ford. Ford, who's just a massive human being at like 6'5", 310, and he's finally stepping into his greatness. Those are going to be your starters. Chigozie Nnaruka is going to be your 3. It looks like I don't know if it's going to be Jason Blissett or Jared Harrison Hunt. I think Blissett, because he was here earlier, is going to be like your number 4. And then maybe a Tyreek Martin, again, who's a 4th-year junior, who was recruited under Craig Kuligowski a few years ago because Kuligowski wanted him at Missouri, and then he was let go at Missouri. He came to Miami, so he was like, hey, you wanted to play for me before, so play for me now, except for he hasn't played anything really. So, yeah, when you're all of a sudden looking at either 2 freshmen in Harrison Hunt and Blissett, or 2 freshmen or a freshman and a 4th-year junior who hasn't ever played really to play like decent rotation snaps at defensive tackle, that can be a problem. So, you really need no more injuries. Definitely like not a top-end injury. Like if John Ford were to be out for a while, that would be impactful in a very, I think, negative way for Miami. So it does change things. It does bump guys up from out of the top 4 or into the top 4 at defensive tackle. So it does change things around a little bit. And hopefully, like I said, Nesta comes back kind of swiftly. If we look at the schedule real quick, if we're talking 6 weeks from now, so we're a week and a half away from Florida. So we'll call that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're looking maybe October 5th against Virginia Tech after 2 bye weeks and 4 games. Maybe that's the time when Nesta can come back. But Miami's going to kind of have to figure out a way to traverse the early season path. And obviously with, Central Michigan and Bethune-Cookman in there, there's a measure of ease to those games that should be able to get through. But losing a guy who was looking like a top 3 player in the rotation just bumps everybody up and it makes everybody's job a little bit more difficult.
Kyle Pickett really wants me to join the ticket in 2020. I don't know which party, but this is the 3rd time that he's written in this live chat. I want to let everyone know I wrote and explained this in the live chat just a few seconds ago, that basically I apologize if I don't recognize your contribution and your question. Many of you have contributed via the super chat. So I've got a different application here so I can post the comments to the screen. So I don't have the YouTube application. I've got a different one, and it advances. And then sometimes I can't go back and catch those comments and place them on the screen. But thank you so much. Maybe it'll force me to do one video where I just thank everybody. And that's all I do is thank everyone and recognize you, because Cam and I both appreciate it very much. Michael Love and Jared Watts being the last 2 that contributed to the super chat. Last words, Cam. What do you got for us? And I'll remind everyone again, we will do our Florida-Miami matchups, offense versus defense, the next 2 weeks.
True story. So we will do that and obviously touch on special teams as well. Last shout outs for me. Again, always please follow us just everywhere that State of the U exists. So the website is stateoftheu.com, facebook.com/thestateoftheu, on Twitter @thestateoftheu. My personal Twitter is @Underwood Sports. Follow us in all of those places. We have a bunch of stuff going on. We're in the top 15 now of the 100 greatest plays countdown, which is starting to get a little bit dicey because people have their, fond memories of certain plays. So they're really getting a little bit worked up as to the unveiling every day of which play, is the next one or the next greatest one up the list for the University of Miami history, football. We have player profiles, we have position previews, we have game previews, we have X's and O's. I'm working on some recruiting stuff right now. We have Canes Camp reports every day from Gabby Arudia, and Marshall Thomas is down going there as well. We had a new Wallpaper Wednesday graphic by our wonderful, inimitable graphic designer, Mike Meredith, and much, much more. Obviously, the fan pulse is the last thing you should sign up for, where you can give your opinions on college football, rank your own top 25, and have community created questions for the State of the U contributors to respond to every single week. So there's lots of stuff going on over there. We're always working. We're always grinding. I'm just finalizing the schedule for coverage going through this football season. So we have even more stuff coming your way. So please come over and fan with us at State of the U.
Jeremiah Martinez, thank you so much for reminding everyone to hit the like button. You cannot imagine, based on the algorithms of YouTube that we've discussed in the past, just please do that simple task. Takes like 3 seconds. Hit the like button. Join Cam and the rest of the crew at a State of the U as I open the show having difficult speaking and difficult speaking to end the show. But most of the middle was fine because Cam was talking, not me. So it's been one of those days and nights for me, but we will see better days. 233 on the line. I think we topped off at 270. And so we could just have an enormous crowd once we start playing football. If you guys help us out by grabbing people that you know on social media and otherwise, and letting them know we're here on Wednesday night. Cam, we appreciate the time as always, sir.
Yeah, it's always fun. Good to be back. And I'll see you guys next week, Wednesday.
Ohio State in just a couple minutes. Keep it right here.
I'm gone.
See you, man.